Number 24 on the findings of fact. In professional literature, people living within a mile of even one wind turbine have frequent sleep disturbances that lead to sleep deprivation. Number 26. Arcola took the recommendations of Chairperson and James, and that a 405-foot wind turbine should be set back 1.25 miles from the nearest residence so as not to cause nighttime noise. This is a setback used in several other countries with far more experience in turbines. That's the end of the finding of fact. This is not unique. This is not a one-time thing. They did the exact same thing here in Vermilion County. When Iberdrola came in and did the study for the project that they abandoned, they did the same exact trick. They took the noise readings near a busy machine shed that was running farm equipment and getting ready for harvest.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. The 5 minutes has been expired.
Thank you. I would like to state for the record, too, that I concur with the second gentleman that spoke, that you have arbitrarily changed the rules of this hearing this evening. I would ask, was there a copy of that in print? Were those rules announced from last month's meeting to this? The rules were changed in the order of who is going to be allowed to comment for public comment.
Thank you.
I would like an answer from that from the state's attorney or whoever would respond to that.
We'll be glad to do that for you. We're not going to do that right now. We'll be glad to do that in the morning for you. We have other items that we need to move on with right now.
Okay, so I will be personally receiving a response to that, or what? How will that happen? Because I'm not from this county. I won't be at your office first thing in the morning. I drove 2 hours to get here tonight.
If you will leave your phone number with the clerk's table, we'll be glad to call you in the morning.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item agenda 9, the item of...
May I have a brief one word or two? Maybe we ought to start county zoning again. I was on the county zoning committee in 1973. Maybe they clear up some things if we started county zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
I'll second his motion.
Under agenda item 9, we have a resolution under item A for the collection of delinquent tax. I would move to adopt the resolution, and as it's printed in your packet before you, is there a second? Ms. Foster has seconded that resolution. Is there a comment or question concerning that? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Manfred?
Yes.
Nylander?
Yes.
Saul?
Yes.
Stark?
Yes.
Stone?
Yes.
Wall?
Yes.
A.J. Wright?
Yes.
Bill Wright?
Yes.
Alexander?
Yes.
Criswell?
Yes.
Dodge?
Yes.
Blair?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
Green?
Yes.
Jenkins? Johnson?
Yes.
Knight?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Marin?
Yes.
McMahon?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Moxley?
Yes.
Chairman Leonard?
Yes.
24 yes, 3 absent, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Motion carries. Item B, under agenda item 9, is the authorization to execute a quitclaim deed for the Second Church of Christ in Danville. I would move to dispense with the reading of this proposal and entertain a second for it. Second. Mr. Moxley, thank you. Mr. Donahue, do you want to explain to the board what this really entails?
Some of you probably already know because this is treated as a property chairman. Second Church of Christ out on the Voorhees street area is doing some remodeling program. They discovered there's a small strip, and there's a map, a sketch in your packet that shows you at the bottom there, it's kind of super shaded, that apparently may or may not be some leftover property that might belong to VermilionCounty in the past when there were roads and things in that area. And so we went to the property committee and received permission to give a quitclaim deed. The quitclaim deed, as you might know, simply says we don't have any interest in this. Whatever we do have is now yours. and it's like a small strip so they can complete the, project of remodeling that they're working on. It's not connected to any other, county property, it's just a sort of an abandoned leftover strip, might have been part of some old road in the past. So that's what it's all about. They made a request to clear this up. I'm not sure how critical it is, but they made a request to clear this up so that, they can finish their, whatever projects they're working on over in that area.
Questions or comments? Mr. Stahl?
Is it county property?
I don't really believe so. I mean, if it is, it might be an old, portion of a road that was paved over long ago. I talked to Doug Statsky, he's not, he was as county property.
Okay, but can we actually dispose of county assets without bid process, without, I mean, normally any asset this county has, we have to do something with the public to get rid of it.
The ability, just like the power to sell the farmland, the county's ability to sell it is quite broad.
Because you're not selling it.
No, we're quick claiming it because it is not of any value, it's surplus. I can't even show that we own it.
That doesn't mean what we do or don't, I mean, shouldn't we know that first?
The only thing that we could find is an old, potentially an old county road that doesn't exist anymore. And that's about all we can find.
Other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Nightland?
Yes.
Stahl?
No.
Stark?
Yes.
Stone?
Yes.
Wall? A.J. Wright?
Yes.
Bill Wright?
Yes.
Alexander?
Yes.
Criswell?
Yes.
Dodge?
Yes.
Greer?
Yes.
Foster? Yes. Fox?
Yes.
Green?
Yes.
Jenkins? Johnson?
Yes.
Knight?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Marin?
Yes.
McMahon?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Moxie?
Yes.
Nesbit?
Yes.
Chairman Weiner?
Yes.
23 yes, 1 no, and 2 absent.
Thank you, motion carries. Our next item under C is the acceptance of an amended TSB lease. Basically, this lease is a, update and a further defining of occupation and space between the county and the city at the TSB, and defining, very completely how any rebates will be paid, and they will be repaid at the same, percentage rate as the rent is paid, and that's based on the space of occupation. So, I would, move to accept this amended TSB lease. Do I have a second? Mr. Maron, thank you. Okay, now it's time for questions or comments. Mr. Wright.
How much did we pay for that lease?
The lease in the TSB
Yeah.
is calculated under contract. I think there's Pat, still 2 years left in the lease, I think, down there. And, I don't have the number in front of me, but it's a contractual lease. All this really addresses is how we're going to basically calculate that cost based on occupancy, and how the rebate, will be, allocated also based on occupancy. Mr. Alexander.
Mr. Chairman, this is really a courtesy from the
Correct.
dot, and really trying to alleviate any more problems that occurred in the past. Is that correct?
That is correct. If you remember 2 years ago, I think in 05 or 06, there was a dispute over how the allocation of the rebate was to be made. We just settled that this last summer, and we want to be sure, that we don't have that, situation arise again. This clarifies that.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Stahl?
Yes.
Stark?
Yes.
Stone?
Yes.
Wall?
Yes.
A.J. Wright?
Yes.
Bill Wright?
Yes.
Alexander?
Yes.
Criswell?
Yes.
Dodge?
Yes.
Greer?
Yes.
Foster? Fox?
Yes.
Green? Jenkins? Johnson?
Yes.
Knight?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Marin?
Yes.
McMahon.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Moxie.
Yes.
Nesbit.
Yes.
Lightlinger.
Yes.
Chairman Whiter.
Yes.
24 yes, 3 absent, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, motion carries. Item D, under, section 9 is an ordinance adopting an intergovernmental cooperative agreement establishing and empowering the Danville Area Transportation Study. I would move to accept this ordinance, and dispense with its reading. Is there a second, please? Mr. Alexander, thank you. We have a motion and a second before the board. Questions or comments? Mr. McMahon?
Can you tell us the changes?
I'm gonna ask Mr. Stafford if he'll help us a little bit with that. Basically, it cleans up some language and defines some of the areas a little bit more. Doug, do you have something you can add to that? I don't have the specific changes. We did have a copy that highlighted all that.
The DAP area transportation study is comprised of two committees, the technical committee and the policy committee. The policy committee is chaired and the people on it are elected officials. The technical committee are the support staff and the chair of the technical committee. The changes are to the committee structure changes, and that is due to new members that have been elected, and for the technical committee, we were having a hard time getting quorum, so it adjusted the number of members and the people that have changed, local mayors that have been elected since the last agreement was drafted.
The basic purpose of this committee is to go ahead, I think on page 3, it'll tell you is to perform and carry out cooperation and comprehensive transportation planning in the Danville area. It not only encompasses the city of Danville, but the surrounding metropolitan area, which would be Catlin, Westville, and so on. Doesn't go north into Bismarck, Houston, Rossville. It's for basically the Danville area.
Well, at one time Tilton opted out, so they opt back in?
No, they would not.
They're still out. Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Stark.
Yes.
Stone.
Yes.
Wall.
Yes.
A.J. Wright.
Yes.
Bill Wright.
Yes.
Alexander.
Yes.
Bidwell.
Yes.
Dodge.
Yes.
Greer.
Yes.
Foster. Yes. Fox.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Jenkins. Yes. Johnson.
Yes.
Knight.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Marin.
Yes.
McMahon.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Moxie.
Yes.
Nesbit.
No.
Lightlinger.
Yes.
Saul.
Yes.
Chairman Whiter.
Yes.
23 yes, 1 no, 3 absent, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, motion carries. Number 10 on our agenda, Mr. Alexander, Finance and Personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have items 10A through E that all relate to budget amendments or line item transfers. And let me just ask, Mr. Chairman, to just clarify and make sure that we could take these collectively, even though it's an amendment line item transfer, or a line item transfer. Could I just make sure that Mr. Donahue agrees with that? Objections, right. I just want to make sure that we could take care of amendments and line item transfers in the same motion. I would like to suggest we handle A through E together unless you have an objection or wish to isolate any of these items, and we can certainly handle those individually all the way down if you prefer. But for the sake of time, these are, again, last of the year amendments, line item transfers, trying to adjust the budgets of these respective departments. So if there are no objections, hearing none, could I just make a comment, Mr. Chairman, too? Sure. If you'll look on the request for amendments, one of the things that is very beneficial is that Ms. Anastey puts a copy of the request in here, and it really summarizes very succinctly what this is for in each of these items. So if you go to 10A 1-3, that's the first item. It's really helpful to read that because you can get caught up in the ordinance itself and not quite understand. So those details are there for the benefit of us to help us understand in that regard and explain the purpose for that. So without further ado, I would like to move for items 10A, B, C, D, E be considered jointly tonight. I would move for approval of all of these and dispense with the reading of each one, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second for Mr. Lee? Thank you. We have a motion and a second, before the board, to take A through E under item 10 as one item. Comments or questions? If not, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Wall?
Yes.
A.J. Wright?
Yes.
Bill Wright?
Yes.
Alexander?
Yes.
Criswell?
Yes.
Dodge?
Yes.
Greer?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
Green?
Yes.
Jenkins? Johnson?
Yes.
Knight?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Marin?
Yes.
McMahon?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Moxie?
Yes.
Nesbit?
Yes.
Nightlinger?
Yes.
Stahl?
Yes.
Stark?
Yes.
Chairman Weiner?
Yes.
24 yes, 3 absent, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Motion carries. Mr. Alexander.
Last item is item F, and Mr. Chairman, what I would like to do is introduce a resolution that was included in the original packet under 10F, and then seek a second, and then also talk about an amendment to clarify that particular resolution. So we'd like to deal with the original resolution as presented in your original packet, and I would move to dispense with the reading of that ordinance, that resolution, I should say, and pass such this evening.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Wright, thank you. Motion and second before the board to consider a resolution for the sale of the county farmland. Mr. Mock, there is discussion. Mr. Mockaby, do you have a motion for amendment?
Yes, I would like to, make a proposal for an amendment of the, resolving clause to read, instead of that, the proceeds be used for the public good, which is the last few words of the original resolution, to that the proceeds be placed in the capital improvement line in the budget and be reserved for capital improvements and maintenance of our public buildings.
Okay, thank you. There is an amendment, and Mr. Stone offers a second. Is there discussion concerning the amendment to the resolution? Mr. Stahl?
So how long is that money tied up for?
It's tied up until whenever, you know, a future county board or basically a future county board would change it. There is no way to tie it up indefinitely. The intention of this is to put it in that, capital improvement line with the idea that a future county board would not change it, that they would honor the intent of this board, but there is no airtight, ironclad way to tie it up forever. Any other discussion or questions? Mr. Nightlinger?
This amendment is to preclude this money being used in some other fashion, possibly frivolously.
That is absolutely correct. This would go into capital improvements. It could be only used for capital improvements or purchase of other capital items for the county, not for day-to-day operating expenses or things like that. This would go into capital improvements. Mr. Stahl?
Do you have a capital improvement plan?
We don't have anything because we've not had any money at this point. We are working on that where we can show you the needs that are in the courthouse and this building and the, health department and so on. But no, there is not a capital improvement plan in place today.
We don't have any idea then how much money we're gonna spend.
I don't have a budget for you today. I don't have a year plan for you, but we're in the process of working on that. Up until the sale of the nursing home, we're transferring some money, $200,000, $400,000 out of the general fund into capital improvements, but there was no plan there. There was no source of revenue there other than the general fund. This would dedicate a source of revenue for, the building and improvement of capital assets in the county.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else? Okay, we're going to be voting then on the amendment to the resolution, so roll call vote, please.
Mr. Wall? A.J. Wright?
Yes.
Bill Wright?
Yes.
Alexander?
Yes.
Criswell?
Yes.
Dodge?
Yes.
Greer?
Yes.
Foster? Yes. Fox?
Yes.
Green? Jenkins? Yes. Johnson? Knight?
Yes.
Lee? Marin?
Yes.
McMahon?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Moxie?
Yes.
Nesbit?
Yes.
Nightlinger?
Yes.
Stahl?
No.
Stark,
Yes.
Stone,
Yeah.
Chairman Linder.
Yes.
23 yes, 1 no, 3 absent.
Thank you, motion carries. So we now have an amended resolution that would read under the resolved portion of it, that the proceeds be placed in the capital improvements line in the budget and be reserved for capital improvements and maintenance of our public buildings. Is there any further discussion, questions, or comments on that?
Are you going back to the original motion?
We are back to the original, and it's now an amended motion, yes. Mr. Miller?
How much of the proceeds, do you anticipate we're gonna spend next year on capital improvements?
I don't have a number for you, it depends on what happens in the health department and the courthouse, but I do not have that number, I don't have a plan in place that I can give you tonight.
I understand it's bringing in $50,000 now a year.
Between 40 and 50, about 45, I think we anticipate this year. The last couple of years, it has been more than that, because crop prices have been higher the last couple of years. Corn prices are down about 50% of what they were. Soybean prices are down about 30%, and, that's kind of the nature of the game of farming.
Well, we've, produced more corn and more beans on the property.
We produced, I'm sorry?
Well, it was produced more.
Oh, sure. Every year there will be an annual income if the property is not sold, yes. It's a commercial farm is what it amounts to.
I'm saying, Joe, you said it varies.
It does.
Every year. So it varies every year.
It is not a cash rent, lease, it's a custom farming lease, and that creates the best opportunity for us over and above a cash rent lease. I think history, Mr. Brian Neville is here to talk about it. He can answer those questions more specifically for you than I can.
I call for the vote, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Objection to the call of the vote.
Very good. It's so noted. Mr. Dodge?
At this time, could you say who would be responsible for setting the reserve price of this property?
That will, we can do that through the finance committee. The problem with setting a public reserve price, is it can create problems in the auction. We will be in consultation if this passes with our agent that will sell the property for us and, follow his advice pretty closely as to what it would be. But we're gonna, if we sell it, there will be a good price for it. Mr. Green?
In ballpark numbers, what do you anticipate the income from this sale to be, and in ballpark numbers, how much money do we need for capital improvement?
Okay, let me do this if you could we go ahead and pass the resolution and then have this discussion? And if you don't wanna, you can vote no, and we get all the information out, but it's proper procedure really to have the motion on the floor, and I guess we have that, don't we? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I'm backed up. We've had an objection to that, Mr. McMahon?
On this commission base on the sale of the farm.
Yes.
Is it flat, is it commission based? Would you explain how that plays out, please?
The commission is calculated as a 2% buyer's fee and a 2% seller's fee, which would be a total of 4%. The buyer would be responsible for 2% of whatever the purchase price is. The county would have deducted from the sale price, 2% from whatever that sale price is.
Is it negotiable?
No, that's your terms. I've checked with a couple other realtors, and if we were just to have an auction without, that's, 3-4% seems to be the going rate on a straight auction sale. Mr. Neville, would you like to come forward, and, we have a motion and a second on the floor here. Would you like to come forward and tell us a little bit about, what's going on? Mr. Brian Neville is with Farmers National Bank here. This company has managed the farm for over 20 years. There are some notebooks distributed in the audience. There are a couple more up here. If you haven't seen one, I'll be glad to get one to you. So, Mr. Brian Neville, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What we propose with the way the land is set, we would sell it in 2 tracts. We would do what we call a freedom sale, meaning we would sell one tract first second tract, and then if somebody wants to put a combination together, whatever brings the most dollars for the county, that's how it's sell. I think that, we've seen that brings the most, top dollars for a farm if somebody wants to put the things together or buy them as an individual tract. Individually, if you wanna buy a smaller tract, you can bid up for it, or if you want, like I said, bid on the full farm, that brings the most money. Mr. McMahon asked, our commission is 2%, and we think that, we've seen no response in a buyer's premium. That's pretty typical anymore in farmland, that the seller, the buyer pays for part of that commission. So, we would look at, once, we get approval to sell the farm, we'd probably look at a date 6 weeks out, because we're looking at, advertising it, in, several agricultural, publications and locally in the newspapers and signage on the road, so we can get that information out. The other big thing is, Farmers National is a large national company. We get, a lot of hits on our internet on a monthly basis, over, a couple million hits that, potentially bring in additional buyers in for it. So, I'd be willing to entertain any other questions, you have, just,
You have done just since my 6 years of being in charge, you've just done a fabulous job. You guys make it a no-brainer. We average between 35 and 50,000 a year, depends on crop prices, as Gary has said. And I'm really putting you on the limb here, because you've been our manager and done a fantastic job, and now you're gonna be a salesman. Is it your recommendation that the county should sell the land?
I don't know if I can make that recommendation. The chairman asked me to put a proposal together for selling it, and, sure, would I love to manage it? I'll love to continue managing, but it makes a lot of sense on where the market is today in real estate, especially farmland. We've seen a huge appreciation in the last 4 or 5 years, probably 50%. Are we at that top of that market? None of us are smart enough to figure that out, or we wouldn't work this hard and stuff, but, we think we're close to that. Actually, the last couple sales I've attended in the last week, we're starting to see this market maybe trend down just a hair. And that was something that, recently I was in a meeting in DC in September, and, a lot of the farm managers and real estate agents were talking about west of the Mississippi, how farmland is starting to soften. We typically see that trend move east. So far, we haven't seen that, but we also weren't below $4 corn until recently, and, so I think that's gonna play into that somewhat. So maybe am I saying that the market's gonna completely fall out? No. I think we'll see maybe in the next year a 10% retracement in the market, which is good for the economy, but I think, yeah, right now we're towards that top end, but, 2 years from now, we could say, hey, it's worth, 20,000 an acre. We just don't know that, so. Yes, Kevin?
Are the, full rights still, the mineral rights still retained at this parcel, and, does this land fall within the 1.5 mile zoning jurisdiction exception? And give you a ballpark number of what you think on a per acre and total basis the
I don't for sure know about the zonings or minerals. We would propose to sell it, whatever, minerals are owned will be sold with the property.
So we still retain, selling the mineral rights?
No, it would be sold as is, with the mineral rights going to the new owner.
So the mineral rights still with the tax?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And the zoning?
That I'm not sure about on the zoning and stuff, so.
I believe it is a mile and a half built. I know certainly the nursing home is, and it's right adjacent to it, so I believe it is.
Okay, and then a ballpark figure on a per acre and total basis?
I talked earlier about, in the low from the 9,500 to 12,000 an acre, somewhere in that range. I mean, you're looking at, 1.3 million for the whole package, as a ballpark. Think about an auction, doesn't make any difference what somebody's willing to pay. You've got to have 2 people pushing somebody for an auction. Fortunately, in that area where we've got a lot of strong, farmers in that area and landowners, that I think it would be very attractive to, for them to add to their, land holdings, so.
Other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, how much, you don't know what the capital improvements will be or what the cost of it, percentage wise to borrow the money, the low interest rate on borrowing money is cheap.
The problem, the county does not have any statutory authority to borrow money, the state does not allow that. So I have no ability to go to a bank and borrow operating capital or long-term capital. We can issue bonds, which takes a referendum approved by the public to borrow money, but it's gotta be secured by a real estate levy. And, at this point in time, I don't think we're willing to, go to the public and ask for a bond issue secured by another tax levy.
Mr. Chairman, Brian, this has been farmland for as long as we can possibly go back, is that correct?
Correct.
It's most likely going to be farmland when it's sold, is that the highest probability of what it would be?
Currently, we would think it as the highest and best, alternative for it, but someone may buy it, to speculate, that's their right and such that they may buy it to farm for a few years and think that something's gonna come in there, or they're wanting to build something there, that would be their decision.
Okay, and Mr. Donahue, would it be true then that if the village of Tilton were to be approached by the owner of the land, whoever it should be once it's sold, they would have to, determine whether or not they would change their zoning on that land? That would be within their purview to do that?
They would have jurisdiction within a mile and a half.
Okay, so somebody couldn't come in and decide to put in some sort of whatever without the permission of the village of Tilton? Okay.
I'm not sure what the question was about zoning, but that zoning map should declare that land as farmland. And in answer to Mr. Wright's question, the zoning commission in Tilton would have the absolute say.
Mr. Stahl?
The $45,000 we take in every year, what do we spend that on now?
It goes in the general fund, it has been used for various projects, some associated with the nursing home in past years, and some not.
So next year, when we don't have that coming in, how are we gonna replace it?
The $45,000 in the general fund, I don't have an answer for you, other than that's not a huge amount in the total budget that's here. And, I think that's something that, we can deal with, Mr. Maron.
We would typically, in a normal budget year, we would have a line item in the capital improvements line item higher than $45,000 in there.
And typically, this year was $400,000, other years it's been $200,000, that comes out of the general fund. That wouldn't come out of the general fund anymore, it would come out of this capital improvement fund, so it's a trade-off.
This is $45,000 that you're taking out for the next 100 years. I mean, once this is gone,
Sure.
it's an earning asset, once it's gone, and you're gonna replace it with that.
If you wanna look at it that way, that is correct, Mr. Maron.
We're looking at, some substantial capital improvement projects with the health department and, various other buildings. It would take approximately 20 years of revenue off that farm to come up with the bulk of what that farmland is worth, that we could apply towards some of these major projects that we're facing, that otherwise we would have to issue bonds and have a new tax levy.
Or they just wouldn't be done. Those are the two alternatives.
Mr. Chairman, another comment. I would just like to add that, there's no reason for the county to continue to be in the farm business. It's not a particularly valid thing for the county to do. It's rather better done by someone who is in the farming business. And we see what happens when governments get involved in businesses that they really don't have any business being in. And so I would much rather see the county be out of the farming business and stick to the things that we're best at, which would be providing safety and so forth to the residents, rather than to be in the farming business. So I wholeheartedly support.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo.
How many years has the county owned that property?
I think probably 140 or 50.
Continue on.
Okay, thank you for your comment, Mr. Green.
Mr. Maron stated that it would take, 10 years.
I think he said 20 or so.
Okay, so we are looking at,
capital improvement dollars of around $2 million, is that correct?
If the land sells and brings my estimate is it'll bring somewhere between 1.2 and $1.5 million. So if you wanna take 1.3 as a midpoint, I think that's a reasonable assumption. If you divide that, into $45,000, I think you're closer to 25 or 6 years it would take to generate the gross dollars that the sale will here. I'm not a banker, I can't tell you what present worth of dollars is, but present worth of dollars, there is a formula that you apply to that to tell you what deferred values are. It's simply a choice of, do we want to continue to take a small annual payment and buy what it'll buy, or do we want to go ahead and sell it at a market that I think by everybody's opinion is probably at the top end, and take that money and then go ahead and do capital improvements that we need to do. We had a plan to redo the courthouse and the public health building, using revenues from the Integris aggregation money, and the state of Illinois got in the middle of it and said we couldn't do that. So that plan kind of fell apart, and since that time we've tried to go piecemeal, and since we took over the courthouse in June of this year, and identify individual capital improvement projects like the roof, like the boilers, like the elevators, and go ahead and do those with funds on hand. We don't have a nursing home, obviously, so we don't have to look at capital improvements out there. I think a few years ago it was talked about even to take the farm and sell it and invest that money back in the nursing home. Perhaps that should have been done. I don't know, Mr. McMahon may have an opinion on that, but it wasn't done. So today, without the nursing home, I think it makes sense for us to move the capital asset of land and move it back into what we need to do to improve and repair and upgrade the current buildings that we have. I just, there's the state law mandates certain things that the county has to do, and we have to have law enforcement, we have to have a court system, we have to have a tax system, a record system, and a road system, among others. There is no responsibility or statutory requirement that we operate a commercial business of any kind, and that's what this is. It's a commercial business. My view is the government should build and foster an environment that allows business to flourish, and I think by putting it back in private hands, that's exactly what we'd be doing. So I just don't believe philosophically that the government should be in a commercial enterprise. That's my view, not necessarily shared by all of you. Land values, as Ryan has said, and you all know that, are involved in agriculture, have dramatically increased over the last 3 to 4 years. I think it's an opportunity for the board to sell at really an all-time high, and as interest rates go up, now whether they will or not, I think they will, but as interest rates go up and commodity prices come down, the value of real estate, ag real estate, is going to decline some. I don't know if it's a 10 or 20%. You may not be old enough. I lived through the early 80s where it depreciated by 50% in a matter of a year and a half. So, it's not necessarily going to fall out of bed, but I don't know how much more opportunity there is for it to go higher. I think it's just an opportunity for us to take an asset that currently is generating a 3 or 3.5% return and put it into a use that we really need to upgrade some buildings and make some improvements in. The health department, that's a good building. The heating and air conditioning down there are original. They're approaching 40 years of age. If you haven't been in the health department, go down and look. The floor coverings down there are original in the building. There was a lot of wasted space as it's set up for basically a clinic organization. We can come in and redo some walls in there and utilize that space, I think, more effectively for the county. But it's your choice.
I understand is that money that will go to capital improvement could all be spent within the space of 1 to 3 years. Is that a fair statement?
That could be. I doubt if it's done quite that quickly. I think as I've said, we have not had a fund balance to work with, so we have not put a plan together to look at capital improvements and to put dollars and cents on them. We've already started the process in the health department. We've had a company come in and look at it, and they are, at no cost to the county, they are preparing basically a plan of how we could utilize that space in a better scenario. But that's not going to be my decision. That's going to be this board's decision about how we spend that money. Mr. McMahon.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on this one, you're a farmer and stuff, so I'm gonna go with you on this one because I really believe that you have the best interest in the county at heart here, and you're looking at the high side. And I will support you on this, but I do have to ask you one question. Dealing with economic development for many years, which I have, they've, are the opposite of what Mr. Reich has said, is they said government should have the land, so if economic development comes in, you can, have a better opportunity to grasp onto a factory, a firm, or something, if you have the land. Is the economic development had any play in this at all?
Not that I'm aware of, that's an area out there that is, they have tried for years to bring some business and some retail into that area, and they've not been successful. I'm unaware of anything. As you know, the north end is where the primary dollars and the primary development has been, but, that's not to say the next person, wouldn't be interested in providing this for a site, for a shopping center or whatever. I don't know, but that's, okay, other questions or comments?
Would we have to pay any capital gains on it?
No.
What kind of taxes does farmland go for? Real estate taxes.
I don't know, the assessor's sitting back there. My guess is in that area, you're looking at somewhere between $25 and $35 an acre. I'm just guessing. Based on the productivity index of the soil types, I don't know what the soil types are out there. We'd have to have, Bruce Harrison Associates generate, farm charts. Since it's always been tax exempt, we've never had it on the assessment rolls. We don't know where. Yeah. I mean, we're not gonna get rich off taxes, so that's. No. Half of whatever the taxes are will go to schools anyway, so. We'll only get about 15% of whatever the taxes are that are generated on in the county. Any other questions or comments? I know it's a big decision. Mr. Miller?
Well, it seems to me if we don't know how much of this money we're gonna spend or how long it's gonna take us to spend it, can we have some sort of a plan put together before we just sell an asset to the county?
The other side of that is the market is where it's at today. I don't know where it'll be in 6 months or 2 years from now. It could be substantially less, it could be more, but, I can tell you that, this combined with what's, out of the nursing home, there's plenty of places to do it. It's whatever this board decides. We've got buildings that need roofs, we've got buildings that need windows, we've got buildings that need, air conditioning and heating units, it's just the opportunity to go ahead and do it right now. Have the money in the bank so that when we put a plan together, we can go forward with it. It's pretty difficult, and nobody's really much interested in putting a plan together if there's no way to fund it. Questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Are you ready for a roll call vote? Okay. Madam Clerk?
Mr. A.J. Wright.
No.
Bill Wright.
Yes.
Alexander.
Yes.
Criswell.
No.
Dodge.
No.
Greer.
Yes.
Foster. Yes. Fox.
No.
Green.
No.
Jenkins. Yes. Johnson.
No.
Knight.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Marin.
Yes.
McMahon.
I trust Gary, yes.
Miller.
No.
Moxie.
Yes.
Nesbit.
Yes.
Lightlinger.
Yes.
Saul.
No.
Stark.
Yes.
Stone.
Yes.
Wall.
No.
Chairman White.
Yes.
Yes, 9 no, and 3 absent, Mr. Chairman.
I believe that's the majority of our quorum tonight, 15 yes votes, motion carries.
Just a point of clarification, doesn't it take 2/3 to sell land without a bid? No.
I'll have to defer to the.
That's not what the statute provides us. Now, the nursing home is a different story. By the statute, they said you have to do that. But ironically, the county's ability to sell land is broader than even municipalities. For some reason.
Well, I have Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Number 11, Mr. Johnson in Transportation.
All right, Mr. Chairman, you're right, I can move in for the agenda, started drinking this water before, county board meeting, so,
And eat and no sleep.
I have an eight on the way here. I have two items in transportation. First is, item A, a resolution county motor fuel tax. This is for, preliminary engineering for roadway repairs, the Denmark Road. I move to dispense with the reading and approve item A.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Mr. Moxley, there's a motion and a second before the board for a resolution, $30,000 to repair road, Denmark Road. Any questions or comments?
Let me just clarify, it's near the West Newell Road,
Sorry.
the road from Denmark to Route 1.
Okay, thank you. We're closed.
That road got money already.
Okay, questions or comments? If not, roll call vote, please.
Bill Wright,
Yes.
Alexander,
Yes.
Christoph,
Yes.
Dodge,
Yes.
Greer,
Yes.
Foster, Fox,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Jenkins, Johnson,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Maren,
Yes.
McMahon,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Moxley,
Yes.
Nesbit,
Yes.
Nightlinger,
Yes.
Saul,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
Stone, Wall, A.J. Wright,
Yes.
Chairman Weiner,
Yes,
24 yes, 3 absent, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, motion carries.
Thank you. Item B, resolution county highway fund, this is a little bit of work, tandem plow, hydraulic built out for the snowplow truck that we purchased over summer. I move to dispense with the reading and approve item B.
There's a motion before the, board on a resolution to approve a contract, low bid contract for the build out of a snowplow. Is there a second? Mr. Nightlinger, thank you. Questions or comments?
I actually got ahead of myself.
Okay. You wanna withdraw that second?
No, it can stand because, I'm familiar with it, but I don't see an amount, monetary amount for that.
Mr. Stansky, do you wanna address that and the reason that monetary amount's not there?
Well, there should be a resolution that's passed by the Transportation Committee with an amount on it.
Correct, I have it right here.
Okay.
I can read it, if that would clarify anything.
You might tell Mr. Nightlinger why that wasn't done initially.
Just a number.
Oh, good number, okay.
The actual low bid was $51,521.43. So, you add it up there.
No, that is
Thank
the
you.
low qualified bid.
Thank you.
Non-equipment, Danville.
Why do we have it, just out of curiosity?
The, process had to be rebid, and we called a special transportation committee meeting to get this bid open so we could bring it here tonight. You probably noticed outside there was a little snow. We'd like to get this plow built, so in the event that it snows a lot, there would be another truck to use in the county. So that's why we had to rebid the project because of some difficulty, and when the bids came in, in order to fit the time elements, this is why it wasn't in here. The agenda went out before the bids were open. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other, Mr. Nightlinger?
I still didn't hear the number.
$51,521.43.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Roll call vote, please.
All right, Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Christoph. Dodge,
Yes.
Greer,
Yes.
Foster, Fox,
Yes.
Green, Jenkins, Johnson,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Maren,
Yes.
McMahon,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Moxley,
Yes.
Nesbit,
Yes.
Nightlinger,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
Stone,
Yes.
Wall, A.J. Wright,
Yes.
Bill Wright,
Yes.
Chairman Weiner.
Yes.
24 yes, 3 absent, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr.
I
Johnson.
have something. I'd like to wish all, my fellow veterans on the county board and in the audience a happy Veterans Day. It was yesterday, but in my heart, every day is Veterans Day.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Stone, please, under public safety.
At the public safety meeting the other night, there were actually 4 resolutions that were discussed. The first one, is
that involves domestic water lines. I'd like to make a motion to dispense with the reading. What I said. Combine?
You can combine 1 through 4, sir.
I'll make a motion to combine them.
Here we have a
Do I hear a
motion.
second?
What a rookie. We have a motion and a second to combine 1 through 4 under item 12. These are all resolutions for the capital improvements account, in the public safety building. Is there any discussion, please? Mr. Dodge.
Go ahead.
Mr. Dodge.
How many, washers and dryers are we replacing in that amount?
Well, I know that there were several of them that were discussed. In fact, they are pretty prehistoric too. How many of them are there? 2 washers and 2 dryers. And, I do know that, they have discussed this in length, and, they were put up to bid, and I accepted the lowest bid.
Are they industrial?
Absolutely.
Big ones. Okay, Mr. Fox, did you have a question?
No, I didn't.
Other questions or comments? If not, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Christoph.
Yes.
Dodge.
Yes.
Greer.
Yes.
Foster. Yes. Fox.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Jenkins. Yes. Johnson.
Yes.
Knight.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Maron.
Yes.
McMahon.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Moxie.
Yes.
Nesbit. Nightlinger.
Yes.
Shaw. Stark.
Yes.
Stone.
Yes.
Wall. A.J. Wright.
Yes.
Bill Wright.
Yes.
Alexander.
Yes.
Chairman Weiner.
Yes,
24 yes, 3 absent, Mr. Chairman.
motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stone. There is no need for executive session under item 13 tonight. Moving on to item 14 under chairman's comments. Mr. Stone, happy birthday. Have we missed someone? I'm thinking there ought to be more birthdays in November. Is there somebody we've overlooked? Okay. Happy birthday, Mr. Stone. Would also tell you that the annex, as of the first of the year under Illinois legislation, will be considered a gun-free building because it's a government building. So the placards, I think we're gonna go ahead and get put up here shortly so the public can begin to get used to that. That comes under the provision of the right to carry, concealed carry in the state of Illinois. This building will be off limits to carry a sidearm in.
The sheriff can't carry his gun.
Well, we'll maybe make an exception for the sheriff or the deputy. Okay. I can also report to you that the boilers are going in the courthouse. They should be operational in a week or so, but they are setting down there and they're manifolding them, and that's one problem that we should have solved here shortly. We're running on one of the old ones at this point in time. Mr. Donahue had a couple of comments he wanted to make, but in view of the time, I think it may be just as well that we not, do that tonight, to answer some questions. Under item B of 14, committee chairperson comments, Mr. Alexander, do you have anything?
Only my thanks to the staff, and to this board for the work on the budget. And, it's a good process, glad to debate, different opinions. I appreciate Dan's work on our department heads as well, and, elected officials working together.
Certainly echo that. Mr. Green? Mr. Johnson?
Give Dave Stone's birthday last week.
No, we wish him a happy birthday.
Give him another year? Happy birthday.
Nothing? Okay. Mr. Knight, do you have anything for your committee? Mr. Knight says nothing. Mr. Maron?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Miller? Mr. Moxie?
Nothing.
Mr. Stone? Very good. Any board member comments tonight that you have that you wanna make a statement, or you wanna share something, or ask a question? This is your time to put your hand up and do that.
May I ask a question on the appointments, or you wanna wait till you get there?
Let's go, if there are nothing else, we'll go to the appointments now. Item 15 on our agenda, appointments. I would ask for a motion of concurrence for appointments. Is there such a motion, please?
I'll make it.
Mr. Mockbee has made the motion. A second, please. Mr. Alexander, okay, we have a motion of concurrence and a second. Now, Mr. Fox, what
I
is?
was wondering what the VermilionCounty Expansion Building Board Authority did. I asked 3 times for a report on what they did, and never did get an answer.
They have done an annual report, I don't have it with me tonight, but that's the Civic Center here in town, and that's, you know, they host a number of things over there. I think they're getting ready for the Festival of Trees now. If you want a financial report, why, I think that's in our office. Be glad to share it with you, but, that's what that is.
Okay, I'm grand happy with it.
Okay? All right, all those in favor of, the appointments for November, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The appointments stand as listed. The readings for November are item 16 on our agenda. You can look through those and see what they are. Announcements for November is item 17. Again, a few items there. Item 18 are vacancies that are on various boards throughout the county. If you're in one of those areas and you'd like to serve, why, see us, we can fix you up. So, number 19 then brings us to the clerk's table.
We have one addition to the clerk's table, Mr. Chairman, from the IEPA filing, a notice for application for permit to manage waste at brickyard disposal and recycling.
Very good, thank you. Seeing all items on the agenda have been accomplished, we declare this meeting on Tuesday, November 12th, adjourned. Thank you. Yeah, we have a long time.
Nice, real fast.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Thank you, have a good time.
It slips my mind whether or what it's worse than that, I can't even tell you. I think I was actually talking to Tammy maybe that day and realized that it was it's bad. But anyway, right.